Welcome to the Following Films podcast. I'm your host, Chris Maynard, and today I'm joined by acclaimed horror filmmaker Sean Byrne, the visionary behind The Loved Ones and The Devil's Candy. Sean is back with his most intense and ambitious film yet, Dangerous Animals, a razor-sharp fusion of shark thriller and serial killer horror, set against the vast, unforgiving waters of the Australian coast, with a bold script from screenwriter Nick Lepard and haunting performances by Hassie and Courtney. This is a film that doesn't just scare, it lingers. Shot on location and loaded with tension and layered with unexpected emotional depth, Dangerous Animals is a high-concept genre film that asks, what if the real monster isn't in the water, but standing right beside you? Dangerous Animals opens exclusively in theaters tomorrow, June 6th. You want to see this one on the biggest screen possible, surrounded by people gripping their seats just as hard as you are. In today's episode, Sean and I dive into the making of the film, the creative evolution of its characters, and what it means to make horror with heart and teeth. Let's get into it. Hey, Sean, how are you today?
Hey, Chris. Good, thanks. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I loved the film. I had a great time with it.
Thank you.
The first thing was that oftentimes I have to pitch my wife what movie I'm going to be watching or what movies I'm going to watch this weekend. And a lot of the time she's not interested. But when I told her there's a serial killer that's using sharks, she said, oh, I'm in. That's it. That didn't need to go anymore. No trailer needed. This has the easiest buy-in, I think. And as long as you uphold that, you're going to nail it. And I think that this is actually so much more than that film that I was expecting. I didn't anticipate that I would actually give a shit about the characters, which I do in this film. So well done, man.
Thank you. But yeah, it's a high concept, isn't it? Immediately just kind of fusing those two subgenres. That got my attention when I received the script.
And then, but clearly the casting was something that was important for you because this is something that is really wonderfully performed. As big as it gets, and it gets big, it still feels grounded in our reality, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've got this saying, it's like, if you don't care, you don't scare. So otherwise it's just kills. And there's plenty of horrors that are like that. Oh, how good were the kills? And it's like, well, I don't really care how good the kills were if I don't care about the person that's potentially going to be killed. and that is a great opportunity within horror, and it's why it's my favorite genre, is it does exist in between life and death. So it seems like a wasted opportunity not to have layered characterization and really care about, the characters as they enter that moment. Because I don't know about you or me, but if someone puts like a knife to my throat, that's going to be the most dramatic moment of my life, if someone cares about me, then you've suddenly, theoretically at least, it's like the zenith of drama.
Well, and you think about this film, and I agree with you completely, but there's actions that the characters take that if you're not buying into the relationship at the center of this film, if you don't care about that, then you're just these are just fodder for whenever the next kill is. And in this, you don't have that. In fact, there's plenty of things for the Fango crowd to dig their teeth into here, but I think you have a lot more than that in this one. This is something that could crossover in that sense, where I think that you could get a wider audience than just the people that are, looking for a quick scare.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, to me, it feels like, it's a summer horror film. It's like pure kind of, scary kind of escapism, and it's like, and it's relentless, and it'll push you to the edge, but it's kind of fun first and foremost. And a big part of that is, just good commercial filmmaking. It's got to have good characterization. It doesn't matter what type of film it is. It's got to have strong characterization or it can't work.
Oh, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more because it's, I know if I look through my films, there's several things in there that it's pretty hard to say this is a character-focused film. And there are lots of films that I love that have some goofy performances, and I'm a genre guy, so there's a lot of horror films that I absolutely adore that are just etched into my DNA that objectively you could say they are bad movies, but I just love them, and it's just I can't get around that. But this is something with a film like this that I can absolutely say this is actually a really well-made film as well. This is something that is thoughtful in its execution. It's not something that was put together over the weekend by a couple of kids, even though I'm assuming this is a small budget that you're working with. You got your sharks to look good too, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah, well, it's definitely it's the biggest budget that I've had to work with by quite a degree because I mean we were actually shooting out on water and there was like so it does have kind of a scope and a vastness of the ocean, but then
Yeah.
yeah, you combine that, it also has that lower budget feel like Saw where there's a claustrophobia to it as well. And yeah, but then we did use real sharks and 4K footage and had a shark researcher, and I was adamant about that because I felt like sharks in a lot of shark films had lost their way and started to feel a bit
Mhm.
video gamey. So I wanted real sharks with real scars, and even though it's meticulously made and the framing is very considered, I wanted the sharks to feel like documentary sharks. So the only visual effects is in the fins above water because obviously that's very difficult to block. But everything else you're seeing, it's a real shark.
Well, I've come to realize that my eye for CGI is terrible. I can't pick it out anymore. It's either CGI has gotten that good, or I'm just so used to it that there's plenty of things that I assume are CGI that are absolutely not, and vice versa, where I assume that this is something that was practical and it was faked. But I think the end goal here, more than anything in both cases, should be that you buy into this world, that you care, that you feel the threat of these monsters, of these outside things. And you absolutely do believe it, that there are sharks there. So it
Yeah,
works.
you got to suspend your disbelief, but yeah, they are real sharks. Anything underwater is absolute 4K footage, real sharks.
So cool.
Yeah.
I love that. And could you talk a little bit about just the cat and mouse element of this? Because that was the other element that I wasn't expecting for this. There is a not just setting up for the next kill, that you really do have a back and forth going on here where a large portion of the film is very claustrophobic in this small space where there's this back and forth. And I really wasn't expecting that kind of film from this. And I was just wonderfully surprised by that.
Yeah, I mean, I really like films where there's kind of a mirroring between antagonists and protagonists, and both Zephyr and Tucker are both, they're from kind of broken homes, and they're both sharks in the sense that, they're just sharks kind of like give birth to their young in the shallows, and you're forced to just like make your way through life kind of on your own. So as much as there's this like, collision course and they're kind of each other's obstacle and they drive each other insane, which they really do. It becomes more and more kind of unhinged. There's also kind of a respect and an understanding between the characters, and I love that there's a scene later in the film where beyond fear and exhaustion they kind of talk to each other in this way that is almost kind of respectful. That he kind of talked about it as the De Niro Pacino scene in kind of
And
they sit down and go, yeah, all right, all bets are off now. We kind of probably know each other more than any of these other characters on both our teams. We know each other, and it's like, because I love that how they just sit down and almost have a coffee together, and it was like that's yeah. I think that's one of the things I love about the film, and also it's a part. It's weird to say, but it's a part of like Jai and Hassie's chemistry. The fact that these two people that are on opposing forces actually have a chemistry is kind of incredible.
Oh, well, they really have to, because you spend so much time waiting for these two worlds to collide. Like you said, everything's building up to that moment. And when they do, you have to have some emotional resonance there. And if you have something that, if you don't care about these characters, something where like Jai's dance sequence, which is just something that again, not expecting in a film like this, but to have that almost like Silence of the Lambs moment in this film, that I think that it could, if that's played wrong, it would really undercut it. And so it's something that it's unnerving, but it's also wonderful and hilarious at the same time. So it's a really great moment.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, every moment has to be justifiable, and we were like, even though it's off range, it's like, this is what he does. He's a filmmaker himself. It's kind of
Yeah.
quite. It's kind of quite meta, and when he's finished, he says it's the greatest show on earth. Once he's finished the film, what do? You have a rap party, it's like a rap party for fun. He's like, I mean, I find that I think it actually works from a character logic point of view, but it's also like incredibly fun. But I love that in horror when it's just kind of absurdist, like in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre when Grandpa's got the hammer and
Yeah.
like. I think all those moments they have to be justifiable within the narrative, because if they're not, then it does kind of stick out as not belonging. But you can kind of have your cake and eat it too, as long as it's built into the fabric of the narrative.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's something that if you're building towards it, then it makes sense. You can go really far as long as you justify it in that sense. And so it doesn't feel like it's out of left field. And because you're setting up the whole time in this movie that this is a character who has a very specific ritual. And so you're just trying to figure out what that ritual is and why there's always these two people that are here and it's almost like he's just moving one person into the victim's chair while one is in the audience that he's sharing it with. This is what's going to come. And it's more of, even though what there is the audience that he's playing for, and it's the next victim every time. And I think there's something, again, that is the filmmaker element of it. He's, that's his version of scorecards, where he's looking at this and seeing how this is working and what it's going to be like the next time.
Yeah. I mean, and that's almost the spine of the film in a way, because we don't know what he's doing to begin with. So
no.
There are 3 scenes on the crane, and the first one is like teasing the audience because they're like, what the hell's going to happen? So that's almost like, drawn out and it's cruel. And then the second scene is like, it's almost Michael Bay action, because by then we know we know what he does, but now it's got to be relentless. And it's like, oh, is this going to happen before we can stop it? And then the third one is like the protagonist kind of facing her destiny. And so it is this like, it's funny. It's like it's a film within a film.
Well, sure. And this is something that I'm assuming the reactions are really positive to this, because I know that when me and my wife watched it, it was just, we were blown away by how much we just had a great time. It's that this was a great time at the movies. This is something that just goes down easy. You have a good time with it. If you're wanting something that is a little bit more than just kind of an empty throwaway horror film, I think you have something, you could do a lot worse than this one. And I think that this is going to be a movie that connects with people. How has the reaction been so far?
Oh, incredible. I mean, I'm still on a kind of a jet lag surreal high from Cannes, because that's the first time I'd seen the film finished audience, and it's the reaction was incredible. It's like everyone kind of jumped and laughed and screamed in the right places, and the feedback has been really great, and so super excited about it. It's a genuine summer horror film. It's not just it's what I mean. It's like it's sun. And it's blood, it's surfing, it's sharks, it's action, it's romance. So that's what we tried to do. We tried to make something that was like had a blockbuster mentality, but with a kind of an indie heart, like a dark indie heart.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad that you touched on the romance element of this, because this movie has a meet cute in it. Again, defying expectation, where you have a romantic comedy structure for a few minutes of it, that it goes off on this tangent. And I wasn't pushing back on that. It was something that normally when films deviate, I can find myself just saying, okay, when is it going to get to the thing that I bought the ticket for? And this one, it could have just gone off in that direction and it would have been totally fine. And it would have been, what did this movie start as? What was this supposed to be? But I was totally engrossed in these two characters and that little, I guess probably about 10-minute introduction they have, where you spend a little bit more time on their relationship than I would have thought.
Yeah, well, I think thematically it's about love, or the absence of love makes like in kind of the absence of love for Tucker. And it's sort of like Zephyr has never, she's had a difficult childhood as well, and she hasn't kind of let love in, and it's what Ooby Dooby sort of stands for, like the that kind of credence breakdown about, yes, this can be, we can have songs about that are political and about the disenfranchised, but you've also got to be, and so that relationship felt kind of central, and we knew that we had to spend time establishing it, because it was gonna come full circle. And in many ways, Moses is the anti-Tucker. Like Tucker is he's kind of a form of masculinity that just can't exist. You need to have kindness, and Zephyr deserves kindness, and so thematically, it felt like it wouldn't have worked without that love story. But of course, as we talked about, you've got to spend enough time to establish it, otherwise it becomes kind of meaningless. So,
well, and I know we're at time right now, but I also just kind of occurred to me right now with Zephyr and Moses is the idea of kind of having the grounded name with Moses, somebody that is of the earth, and someone that's of the sky, and kind of this building into the characters with these names. Was that part of this?
Hey, that's a question you'd have to ask Nick, because they were just, I mean, it felt right, but they were there right from the beginning. It was like Moses, okay, and Zephyr. I mean, Zephyr just felt like a surfer, like, is there more of a surfer name than just, and And Moses, he is meant to represent kindness and not not judging and actually listening there's something kind of like there's warm and altruistic kind of about him that needed to balance out Tucker. But that's a very good question. I'm going to ask Nick that.
Well, thank you. I'm love character names. It's one of those things when I sit down and write, I get way too obsessed on the idea of what to name people. So, but I know we're out of time, and thank you so much for doing this, man. I appreciate it. And congratulations. You got a special one here. Had a great time with this.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Sean. Take care.
You too.
We used some bridges that we wired and blown. That time's over now. So over now. I can't say I'm sad to see it go. That's over now. So over now. So what you doing in a couple of years? On a Saturday. Most people never get what you've always been, always been, always been. And most people never get